So guys, welcome to the Scottish borders and Smailholm Castle. It's a place that I haven't really seen before. I noticed it online last night as I was frantically trying to find somewhere to come to. Yesterday was a bit of a challenging day, let's say. My little boy had an accident, so where I would usually take that day before I go out to shoot to kind of research an area and find somewhere to go, I didn't really have that luxury. So we've come to this location that I've seen online, and I noticed that there was this lake leading up to this beautiful Riva castle, and you can just see that in the background there. I'll pop an image up now. But it's a really nice scene, but what's happened here is obviously they haven't had a great deal of rain, and what's happened is all this area has been filled with weed, pondweed, where there's usually water. So it's just like a sea of green instead of where the water would be. And I think it would make a really nice scene with the water in place. Might be somewhere that I have to return to, but I'm going to take the shot anyway because it's got a real different look about it, because the whole area, there's not just kind of one area of green. The whole pond area is just a sea of green. So it's kind of different. We've also got all those grey clouds up in the background there, which really add to it, more drama. But I'll get you to the back of the screen. You should be able to see what's going on now. You should see that I'm in a 16:9 format. You can see that I've got that castle or tower just kind of to the right of that first left third. There's a road leaning in from this kind of right hand side, which I'm hoping we don't see too much of. The only thing that I've got that I'm going to have a couple of issues with is, you can see up on the hillside over here there's some power lines. I'm going to have to try and get rid of those, or telephone wires, whichever they are. Also, the bush that's in front on what would be this little island here kind of sits above the horizon slightly, only ever so slightly from where I am. If I had another couple of feet above me, I would probably be able to get it down below. But what I'll probably end up doing is just cloning out that top inch or so of that bush, just so it's not sticking above the horizon there. But I really like the fact that we've got all this drama happening over behind the castle there. The clouds are really nice. There's quite a bit of wind, so I'm going to have to watch shutter speeds unless I want to kind of have that more surreal look to the foreground where I've got motion in the grass. But I'm going to try both. I'll try a shot with a faster shutter speed to kind of freeze that, and then I might try something different with a longer shutter speed, but we'll see how it goes. But yeah, 16:9's working really well, because if I go any wider than that, I'm getting a lot more of the foreground in here, and it's quite messy down the bottom here. I don't really want that in. So I'm going to grab this shot now and pop it up for you. And now I've got that wider scene, what I thought I'd actually do is get a more tight close in. So I've put the 100-200 lens on, and I've gone quite tight in. I got a shot before with a person in the frame. I've taken another shot with a person out of the frame and just the tower on it by itself. But I think it works quite well because you've got those dark dramatic skies behind it over there. Obviously the flag flying just below there really kind of helps to add to the scene as well. And I've got rid of all of this foreground completely out of this, all of this grass, and I think it's actually called mare's tail grass, I've got a feeling. I've got rid of all of that and just focused in on the mound that the tower is on, and then just the sky in the background there, and just gone really tight in. I'll just bring that up again because the screen's just disappeared. There we go. So what you should see there is I've gone really tight in, kept it as a 16:9 again. I've lined the windows up with the right hand third, and off to the left I've kind of got that negative space with those dramatic clouds in. I didn't really want to centre the image too much because it's a bit obvious, so I've set it off to the right hand side, because setting it off to the right means that I can get rid of all these power lines that are actually over on this side, so that works better for me. I'm going to grab this shot and I'll pop it up for you now. So leaving Smailholm Tower now, we've made our way 2 or 3 miles down the road to Dryborough Abbey. And the Abbey itself looks quite difficult to photograph, at least from this side and this angle. But there's a little white building back in the distance there in this field. And obviously you've got these sheep in the distance here, you've got this long grass kind of leading its way through, and behind it you've got some nice beech trees, copper beech trees, which really set it off against the background, because obviously you've got that white building against the dark copper beech, and then there's trees either side there, so I think it'll make quite a nice image. I'm undecided at the minute whether to actually include sky in it at all, or just make a pano of the actual building itself using the trees because it's so dark. But I'm going to get you to the back of the camera and walk you through both and see which looks best. Right, so hopefully what you see is I've got this set up as a 4x3 because I wanted to show you what it looked like, including the sky to start with. And as you can see, I've got it kind of the cross section of that lower third, and that building is kind of bang on that cross section, and that's the part of the frame that I'm actually focusing on as well. I've got it currently just a stop under. I've got it at a shutter speed of 200. And that's because I'm wanting to reduce as much motion in these branches and everything in front of me as possible, because obviously there's a bit of breeze and a bit of motion there. So I want to freeze that. And because it's not too strong, the wind's not like overly strong, I've got the stabilisation switched off at the moment. I'm just going to capture this shot. So what hopefully you should see is that I've got this sky in the element, and I quite like the sky in the fact that it's, again, from before we've got really quite dark and dramatic skies. However, I'm not really sure it works with this frame. What I want to do is just show you what it actually looks like as the crop. And if I reduce that down now and just adjust my composition slightly, you'll see what I was getting at if I get rid of the sky altogether. There we go. Now I've got that building in, and obviously there's some sheep lying down and everything in the foreground now, and then that tree off to the left. I'm just going to adjust my shutter speed again slightly. In fact, I'm going to up the ISO just to bring that in line. And there you go. You can see now I've eliminated the sky altogether, and I think eliminating the sky in this case actually leaves a cleaner shot. I'm just going to grab this one now. And what I mean by that is I've got the grass in the foreground down there, you've got those darker trees at the back of that building, and yet there's no kind of sky competing for that lighter area of the frame. Whereas if I leave that sky in, your attention's drawn more to the sky than it is that building, I think. So I'm just going to grab that, and I think that's the shot I'm going to stick with. But I'll put both of them up and you tell me which you prefer, the one with the sky or the narrower crop with the sky eliminated. So the nice thing about this area is all these places are really tight knit, so they're really close together. We're only 2 miles up the road from the Abbey we just visited, and then just further down the road was the first place we visited this morning. So it's really close together, and this is in the Borders area. And as you can see, we've come to a place now called Scott's View, which is obviously a view that Walter Scott admired quite a lot. So thought we'd come to this place because it was signposted past the Abbey anyway, so we thought we'd try it and see what we could get. And just up on the hill we noticed this standing stone, which is just behind me here, and I thought that might make an interesting kind of foreground to the image as well. I'm going to try two things. I'm going to try a panoramic shot with the mountains off in the distance, the mountains, the hills, whichever you like to call them, off in the distance just as a pano, and then maybe incorporate this stone into it as well and see how that looks. I don't know whether it's going to put it off balance with it being off to one side of the frame, so I'm going to have to get you to the back of the camera and show you both aspects, with the pano, without the stone in, and then with it in, and see which one you think's going to work best. I'm not entirely sure at the minute until we get going. So we're going to get a bit of a soaking, I think, so I'm going to walk you through this pretty quick. With this first shot, I was going to do a pano, but the more I looked at it, I think a 16:9 is going to work best for me here, because the shot without the stone in, I'm going to incorporate this foreground, which is all this grass in front of me here. So what you should see is 16:9, and the way that the hills work here, they kind of come down and meet each other in the foreground, and that almost matches with the middle of those two peaks of those hills off in the distance. So I think it's quite a good balance. Now what I've got is I've put a circular case polarizer on just to kind of bring as much drama out of that sky as possible, and just waiting for the light to hit those peaks off in the distance to add a little bit of something else to the image. I've got my focus point kind of a third of the way in, just in the middle of the frame there. I'm about just getting close to 2 stops under, and the reason for that is there's quite a lot of bright spots in that sky. Now, even though that sort of the hills in the distance there are lighting up, I really want to retain the detail in the sky. I don't want to lose that, so that's why I'm kind of underexposing, just to be on the safe side. I'm at ISO 100, f16, simple shot. I've kind of almost lined those hills and this foreground element up in towards the middle of the frame, eliminating this stone. So I'm going to grab this shot first and pop it up for you, and then we're going to move on and include this standing stone in the frame. So what you should see is I've gone into this pano mode, the 65-24, and the reason for that is instead of the last shot where I wanted to include a lot more of this hillside in the foreground, I'm trying to use that, but I also wanted to include this standing stone, and I've put it off to the right hand side of my frame there. Now I've actually put it right slap bang along that last third to the right there. That it's almost right dead in line with that last third going up. Now I've got the mountains off in the middle of the frame there, and what I've done is I've actually aligned that same piece of grass that was kind of converging down the bottom up on the bottom lower side of the frame, although there's less of it. And then the middle side section of the frame is the hills and the rolling fields off in the distance there. And above that, I've almost got as much sky as I have grass in the foreground down here, just to try and balance it as much as possible. Now I've come back a little further up the hill so that this standing stone doesn't stick up above the horizon and kind of cause a bit of a distraction. And that kind of helps as well. Now, the good thing is we kind of keep getting these rain showers moving through, but with that as well, it's making the sky really dramatic. And what I'm enjoying about today is the fact that all of these places we've been visiting have got man-made elements in them, like the standing stones, for example, like the abbey. Even though I didn't actually shoot the abbey, I was shooting that, it looked like a grain store or something like that off in the field there. It all works really well. I mean, it's not everybody's cup of tea, like man's influence in the landscape, but I think it's quite a different thing to photograph. Just coming out for a day and only photographing things with man-made elements is quite interesting, actually. It kind of makes you think differently about how you're photographing. So yeah, I think it's something different just to try, and it gives you a different kind of style of photography to play with, and just kind of helps you improve. I think just everything you can try that's different is only going to help you improve with your photography. So with this one, I'm not going to bother actually showing you the back of the camera because it's a variation of the scene that we've just shot. We've literally just walked down the hill into where there's these wheat or barley fields here. And my thinking behind the shot is it's a 4x3 variation of that last shot, only you've got the wheat field in the foreground. And I'm using the 10-stop filter to actually give a bit of motion and movement to that. So slowing it down enough to kind of let the wind blow and give a bit of a creative look to the photo. You're not going to be able to see much because obviously I've got a 10-stop filter on it, and it's quite dark looking through the viewfinder now, but it's given me a 5-second exposure at f16 ISO 100, and I'm just going to grab the shot. As the light comes in, hopefully it'll kind of give this foreground element just that little bit of motion and a little bit of interest. Just something slightly different to the shots that we've just taken up on the hill there.